Well, hello and welcome back to Ranking Records. This is Mike from Music City. Today we are going to look at a segment of the catalog of none other than Sir Elton Hercules John, simply known as Elton John, formerly known as Reginald Dwight. But we're going to pick a segment of his career that covers 1969 through 1976. What I'm sort of focusing on here is they reissued and remastered his catalog on CD and called it the Classic Years. And we're going to look through that Classic Years collection plus one. We're taking it one more album because going that one step further takes us to the end of the first phase of his recording career with his lyricist partner, Bernie Taupin. Now, they did get back together later on, but they did take a little break after that one album that we're going to look at lastly. There's 11 studio records in this group here. There's 2 live records, and there's also a soundtrack record. So Elton was quite prolific during this period, and in my opinion, and I know a lot of my musical friends back in the day, we were just sort of overwhelmed with the quality of and consistency of music that Elton was putting out at this time. I mean, we used to compare his greatness to the Beatles, but what happened after the 70s, I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit. We are gonna, well, first off, I want to do something. Part of my renewed interest in Elton's music is his autobiography that came out last year, The Great Me. Very, very good read. He sure led a wild life. He wanted to get as much sex, drugs, and rock and roll into his life as he could. And it's a pretty sad story at times, but the good news is, hey, he's in a good place right now. He got through some tough times, so we're real happy that happened. Now, we're going to look at these 11 studio records. We're going to do something a little different. Typically, I've been going from least favorite to favorite. I'm going to go the other way this time, from favorite to least favorite, and there's a reason I'm going to do that, and we'll make that clearer as we go on. But let's start off with my favorite, always been my favorite Elton John record, and that's the great Tumbleweed Connection. It was his third record. The lyrics of Bernie Taupin were sort of a tribute to the Old West. This was just Elton at his peak. Can You Say Americana? Back in 1971. Man, I tell you, songs like Come Down in Time, Country Comfort, some of my favorites. I still know the words to every song on this record. I was so surprised. It's really begging for today's Americana artists to do a tribute record to this. So if you're listening, I would say that's a good idea. And I do want to mention that I did go back and re-listen to all of the Elton catalog right now. And really at this point, too, let me just make mention that the remastering job that they did on these CDs was fantastic. Listening to them with the stereo cranked up was just a really incredible experience how well they were remastered. So Tumbleweed Connection, my favorite, still my favorite today. Now, and in these first 6 records that we're going to talk about, boy, it's kind of tough to differentiate. They were all just such great records, and they came out in such a quick frequency. I mean, we were getting music from Elton about every 6 months. It was just remarkable. But number 2, I'm going to go with Madman Across the Water, which was the album right after Tumbleweed Connection. Just a fantastic record. It's got the great Tiny Dancer on there that we all remembered how much we loved it when the movie Almost Famous used it in a great way. It's also got Leave on here, Holiday Inn, some of my favorite songs by Elton. Just a great record. Number 3, we're going to jump a little bit ahead, and this is the album for me where I just kind of felt that Elton's career kind of peaked, and maybe, it kind of went a little downhill after then. But this is the great double record set, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Just fantastic record. One of the best double record sets I think that we've ever seen. And hey, there's a suggestion for a possible future Rankin Records great double records sets. I love the way this record starts off with the instrumental Funeral for a Friend, how it kicks into Love Lies Bleeding. We've also got the ubiquitous Candle in the Wind here that went on to become the all-time greatest selling single after Elton redid it for Princess Di. I love the song Harmony, Saturday Nights Are Right for Fighting. A great record, and we're going to talk about seeing Elton live later, and this was sort of the peak for me of his live performance. These songs really sounded great live. Number 4, another one of the earlier records, Honky Chateau. It's got the big hit on it, Rocket Man. The song Honky Cat, a great song. Mona Lisa and Mad Hatter is a song about my favorite city in the world, New York City. Just a good record. Again, these records were just coming out every 6 months, and you know, the power, I call it the power trio of Dee Murray on bass and Nigel Olsson on drums and Elton on piano. Just really, really great stuff. Number 5 is the Elton John record. Now, you may think this is his debut record, but it's not. It actually was his second record, but it was really the first record to get a wide release and really get Elton attention. And is this record that he came over and first toured the States. There's some famous shows that he did at the Troubadour in LA to kick things off. And of course, on this record is the fantastic Your Song. In my opinion, one of the most perfect songs ever written. I love talking about songs that I call perfect, and when I talk about a song that way, it's just that the lyrics are so compact and concise that there's not a wasted word in them. So one of the best songs of all time, no doubt. And you know, also on this you've got Take Me to the Pilot, 60 Years On, some songs that really showed this power trio, you know, have some real power live. They were great live songs. Number 6, and again, these top 6 are really close. Again, at its peak, Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. Another fine record. Has the big hit Daniel on there. Also has one of my favorite Elton songs, I'm Gonna Be a Teenage Idol, which I believe he wrote about his friend Mark Bolan. Good, solid record. Again, I mean, he just kept spitting them out. Now, I'm going to take a little diversion here for number 7, and that is the true debut album called Empty Sky. Now, I had really forgotten a lot about this record, and I mentioned I went back and re-listened to everything, and then listening to this, I was just blown away how good this record sounds. Now, listen to the song Empty Sky, the title track. I think it's one of the best pieces of music that Elton has ever recorded. Musically, it's just fabulous. Now, why didn't this album make a mark for Elton? I don't know, maybe Bernie's lyrics at the time were a little cerebral, obscure. I don't know what the right word is, but I don't think that Bernie hit into that gear yet where he was writing pop hits like Elvis eventually came. But still, a record that I really think you need to go back and listen to. There's also the song Skyline Pigeon on there, which was sort of Elton's first attempt at a hit. He later re-recorded the song that didn't make a mark, but again, give this one a listen. Now, so we've gone through 7. That leaves 4. And before we go through those 4, let's take a little bit of diversion. Also at this time, we have the soundtrack to the movie Friends, where Elton and Bernie wrote the music for it. I think there was a movie. I'd never seen it. I don't know anyone who's ever seen it, but I think most of us, if we're familiar with Elton's music, we know about this. The song Friends got a lot of airplay. It was kind of a minor hit. In addition to your typical instrumental soundtrack music, there's a few songs with vocals and lyrics on them. In addition to the title track, there's a song called Can I Put You On, which is also on one of his live records. Really good song. So, man, this came in the middle of 2 records. I mean, I think he had 3 records in a year. I mean, it's just remarkable how fast this stuff was coming out. You'll notice this is vinyl, not CD. There has not been a separate CD release for Friends. If you want to get this digitally on CD, Elton released a package called Rare Masters, which had a lot of his, I believe, had all of his B-sides on it, and it also has the full Friends soundtrack on it as well. So if you want to get it on CD, that's where you got to go. Now, I did mention that there were 2 live records that came out in the Classic Years series. Let's talk about them real quickly. The first is the fantastic 11-17-70. I already talked about this when I did a piece earlier on the classic live albums of classic rock. Just a great record, and it's that threesome that I talked about, the band earlier, just fabulous. They're at their finest. This is just such great history, musical history. Now, for Record Store Day, I think maybe 2 years ago, they released it on double vinyl, the full set. This was a radio show at the time that was widely bootlegged, but remarkable recording. You got to get it. Now, they closed out the Classic Year series with this live record called Here and There. It's a 2 CD set, not complete shows. The first CD is from a London show about 75, 76. And then the other one is the show from Madison Square Garden in 1974, Thanksgiving Day 1974, and I was there. If I can brag a little bit, here's the ticket stubs to my 2 favorite shows I've ever been to. Bruce Springsteen at the bottom line, and Elton John at Madison Square Garden, Thanksgiving Day 1974, with special guest John Lennon. Yes, it was a fabulous moment. I have written a full story about it on my blog, musiccitymike.net, that you should go check out. On this, you have the 3 complete songs that he did with John Lennon that night, which were Lennon's hit, Whatever Gets You Through the Night, Elton's current hit at the time, the cover of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and also a Paul McCartney song, a song that Paul McCartney sang called I Saw Her Standing There, which they did. Fantastic. It's so sad people didn't have cell phones back then, and that there's not a video of it that exists, but at least we got the audio in good place. It's been released on B-sides before, but here you got the full thing here as well. So let's get into those final 4, and this is where I mentioned that after that peak with Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, it sort of was, each album got successively least likable to me, and I'm going to rank these final 4 in the order that they came out. The first one was Caribou, and the hit off of this, well, you had The Bitch Is Back, which I thought was a great pop song, but then you had Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, which honestly just wasn't one of my favorite Elton songs. I think you're going to see this theme of just sort of these ballads that just I don't know, they just didn't seem to have the pizzazz of those earlier records. I don't know, were they maudlin? I don't know, but I think one of the things about these latter records, I think that outside of the hits, the non-hit, the LP tracks weren't as strong as they were in the past. Here's a theory. Why did Elton's music start to, go down, in my opinion? Number one, were we saturated with Elton John music? Did we have enough we didn't need anymore? That's a theory that I expose sometimes, that, we can only handle so much. Secondly, did punk rock scare us away from artists like Elton John, and our attention was diverted elsewhere? And third, maybe the music wasn't that good enough. So maybe it's a little bit of all those things, and we didn't know that this was sort of the winding down of that first stage of his career with Bernie Taupin. Maybe both needed a fresh look. We'll see. But getting back to the rankings, number 8, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. Supposedly, Bernie wrote the story of his relationship with Elton. I don't know that it came through that great to me. Someone Saved My Life Tonight was the hit off of this. Again, just not one of the most exciting singles that he's had. Number 10, we had Rock of the Westies. Now, interestingly enough, here he split the band and went back to some of those players who were actually on that first Empty Sky record, but he had gotten rid of the power trio. I went with a different band. this album just didn't do much for me. The radio hit was Island Girl, not one of his best songs, and the LP tracks on here just weren't, in my opinion, up to the standards that he set for, high standards that he set for himself. And then finally, now, and this is where this technically wasn't in that Classic Year series, but it was the last record of the first phase of his songwriting career with Bernie Taupin, and that's the double record set, Blue Moves. Man, I had really forgotten about this record, and I was really surprised in listening to it that there was a pretty heavy dose of instrumental songs on this record, and I found the arrangements that seemed to be overdone and maybe a little elaborate. I just read a review recently when they used the word excessive. Again, sorry seems to be the hardest word, was the hit. Nothing that really excited me. So this makes the bottom of the list, and that was sort of the decline in my following the music of Elton John. Now, I can't say that I stayed very close to his music since the 70s. And here's where I throw it out to you, is I know that he's done a lot of things since then. What am I missing? What are the great songs of that other phase that I should be looking at? And if we were to do a ranking of those stages, so I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. But undoubtedly, Elton John in the 70s was fabulous, and this is some great music. And thank you, Elton and Bernie, for bringing it to us. Well, that concludes this segment of Ranking Records. I hope you liked it. Look forward to doing some more. Please help us out. We're getting some attention now. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and also share these on your socials. This is Mike from Music City, signing off.